Hello and welcome back to the Mind and Money podcast. I'm Sherry, a financial coach.
And I'm Val, a financial planner. And today we're doing an Am I the Asshole? So this is a really short one. It's a common thing that comes up when we're working with clients is how do couples organize their money? And there's no perfect way. Everyone's different. But this is the question. My boyfriend makes more money than I do, yet he wants me to pay half our expenses. Is that fair? And there is some very varying answers.
Some hot takes.
There's some hot takes. Hot takes. The one is like, no way, dump him. He should pay for everything. What a jerk. He saves his money at your expense. Women do twice the work at a job and get paid at least 1/3 than a man. Sometimes you are paid the same as a man who has no education to speak of and works less hours. There's like some deep pieces here, but let's come back to it. I see that
a lot in some Facebook groups where there's something similar and like immediately it's like divorce, separate, leave him. It's like, well,
yes.
Okay, like
hold on.
Let's dive into this a little more. Maybe he just doesn't know like what makes the most sense, and maybe that's what somebody else did or what somebody told him. And yeah, it can get down to the extreme part of like financial abuse if you try and talk to a spouse or partner about changing the way you do things and like, no, get bent. This is the way we're doing it. You live in this house the same as I do. Why should you pay less than I do? And in those cases, like those are definite red flags. If the person is not open to negotiate, then like
that's like a bigger issue onto itself. It's like, okay, there's something you need to reflect on here.
And if you're living with a spouse or partner and somebody you're supposed to love and is supposed to love you, it's different than if you're living with a roommate. Like if you have a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate, then 50-50 makes sense if you're both have similar sized bedrooms and all of those things are factors.
Right.
But when it's somebody that you're supposed to love, then there do need to be some considerations as to how you manage your money. And you're right. There's no one way to do it. There are so many different ways to do it. But if you do go the route of we're each going to keep completely independent finances and contribute to the household expenses at like some predetermined way, yes, 50-50 can work, but I really encourage that to be if you have similar incomes and if you have similar individual debt loads too. So if my spouse and I were doing it this way and we both had similar incomes, but I had student debt and student loans or a line of credit or credit card debt that had decent, significant monthly payments, and he didn't have any, then even if we make the same income, some compensation still need to be adjusted for that. And the argument can be made, well, I'm in debt and that's not their fault, so why should I contribute less to the household? And then again, it's like it's supposed to be a collaborative, cooperative relationship where you're not looking at being, well, what's fair? It's fair if we both split it 50-50. Or I've seen some situations too where it's like, I have 2 kids and he has no kids, or he has a kid that only lives here every other weekend. So then it's not looking at the income. It's like, well, you're using half of our bedroom and then 2 bedrooms. So then you should pay more. It's like, if the negotiation is coming from a place of, well, this is what you use, so this is what you should pay for, and
that's not that partnership, though.
Yeah,
like that's more of that. Yeah, negotiation is the perfect word, right? But having the conversation also before you're combined is really ideal.
It is key, and also like having a written agreement is also really helpful, especially if I've seen some situations too where each partner has their own house that they own, and then one partner sells or starts to rent out the house and moves into their partner's house. And then like, I know this is horrible to go into it thinking about things like that, but if you're both established adults with assets as far as housing and you decide to move into one house or the other, having the forethought to think about what if? Yes,
Yep.
we're in love, this relationship, we want it to last forever, but what if it doesn't? And what if I sold my house and then gave my partner $50,000 to put down on their mortgage as my
Right.
contribution, and then we don't have anything in writing, and then especially if it's a challenging breakup, then you're in court both spending tens of thousands of dollars to figure out
Yes.
like
How to
what
unwind.
each of you is entitled to. Yeah, that's a good, before you wind up things and get muddled with a spouse or partner, like think about what is like how things will unwind if you get there. And it's a different situation if you get married or you start living with somebody and you purchase a house together that you've both contributed to the down payments. That's different because then you're kind of starting from not having a whole lot. So then you're both contributing to it. But yeah, it's thinking about not what's fair, but what makes equitable.
Sense. Yes.
What makes sense so that you can both be contributing in a way towards the household. Another way that I've had people look at it before too is how does the split work so that we both have a similar amount of like
disposable
leftover
income.
Money? Yeah. So,
yes.
So if one person has no disposable income at the end of it and the other person has $2,000 of disposable income every month, it's going to cause tension, and money is one of the biggest causes of relationship breakdown. So having a plan where neither of you feels resentful of the other and you both feel like, yep, this is a good plan. And then taking time to reevaluate it regularly or when there's a significant change. So if you get a new job or you get a pay raise or your commission structure changes or somebody's hours get cut, going back to the table and figuring out, okay, what do we change? And I've seen some too where they're splitting everything, whatever percentage they choose, but then there's a million e-transfers between the two of them. It's like, oh, hey, hon, so say they're splitting 50-50. I spent $100 at the grocery store. Can you send me $50? I paid the phone bill. It was $125. Like, finding ways so that it's less of that back and forth, because if you have to remember, especially if you're an ADHD individual, if you have to remember how much you spent at the grocery store and if your partner has e-transferred you to cover it, or if you haven't even asked them, or there's so many things that can go wrong. So I like to look at when we look at the full plan and then we look at, okay, currently who's paying for what right now. So if you guys are moving in together and I'm moving into somebody's house, well, they're already paying the rent, the internet, all of those things. And then what things can I cover? So maybe I cover groceries or just like, and what are those approximate costs? And can we split it so that we know we're both contributing what we want to contribute based on our overall plan without all of the back and forth with transferring money between one another?
There's also the piece too is like, depending on the situation and how you've combined, if something happens to one spouse where all the bills in their name and now you're stuck trying to figure out where they are, how to pay it, that's another piece that's layered on.
And if you're married, that's easier because you have the paperwork to say, hey, my spouse passed away. But if you're not married, that gets a lot harder. The hydro company's gonna be like, who are you? So yeah, having bills where you both have access to the account is important too. And I think one of the better ways to manage things so that there's not so much back and forth is having a joint household account where you determine how much you each are going to contribute based on what the overall costs of managing the household are. And every time each of you get paid, you put your respective chunk in there. Yeah, there's so many different ways. But make sure if you've decided a way between you and your partner and it's burning your ass every day, we need to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, like with this one, obviously she doesn't feel it's fair, so she's reaching out to the internet about it. Have that conversation. Like,
yeah. And does she say how much different the income is?
That is it. No, it just says he makes more than I do, yet he wants me to pay half our expenses. Is that fair? It's very short.
And so, like, really, maybe it is fair because maybe she makes $80,000 and he makes $85,000, but he has a credit card payment each month that she doesn't have. So,
right, it is big picture. Like,
It
go
could be
big
fair.
picture. Yes.
And the
Yes.
internet just goes batshit crazy. Like,
No
leave
kidding.
him, divorce him. Like, but if he's making $250,000 and she's making
Right.
$50,000 and she has a dependent that she has to pay for, like, there are ways where this is so far wrong, and there are scenarios where it's like, you know what, that kind of makes logical sense.
Yeah, it really is knowing the full picture and then doing the equitable things and making sure that both parties are going to not build up that tension and resentment about it.
Yep.
So talk about it before you move in.
But also
Please.
talk about it regularly. Like, maybe once a month you have a meeting and you talk about, if you have a household account, you check the balance on the household account and you see, is the balance going up every month? Do we need to look at the bills? Have they changed? Or are we getting too close at the end of every month to be, ooh, this is a little, like, we need to put a little bit more in? And yeah, just talk to them about money. And if you're considering moving in with somebody, or you live with somebody and they don't know how much you make and you don't know how much they make and you don't know what their debt is and they don't know, that's a lot of red flags. Because if you're ready to commit to moving in with somebody, but you don't want them to know that you have $10,000 in credit card debt.
Talk about the money first.
Yeah.
Please.
And I know it's scary, but
it's less
better.
Scary than carrying that secret.
Yes. Yeah. Fear grows in the dark and shame grows in the dark. And if there is longevity to the relationship and you move in with somebody, they're eventually going to find out that you're trying to hide debt from them. And I've heard and seen some pretty sketch stuff from some mortgage brokers where, like, if you live with somebody and you eventually want to buy a house and you're both applying for the mortgage together, they're going to find out anything you've been trying to hide, because the mortgage broker needs to see all the things. And if you have a debt that you've, like, been missing payments on, or you're close to the limit or over the limit on a credit card, that's going to potentially hold you and your partner back from qualifying for a mortgage. And tell me that's not a really shitty time for somebody to find out about it.
Yeah. Have a conversation beforehand, because being that expert that delivers that news also really sucks.
Yeah. But then too, if you didn't have the conversation beforehand and you're listening to this, shaking your head going like, I'm seeing some red flags. I don't like how this feels, the financial relationship between my partner and I know it's scary, but I encourage you to say to them, hey, I want to look at the big picture of our finances and just make sure that what we're doing makes sense. And sometimes it can feel scary to do that on your own. And I've actually worked with, and I'm sure you have too, worked with some couples to think about, like, okay, we need to see the big picture and we don't want to do it just the two of us, because we don't want there to be this tension, and we both have slightly differing views, and we just, somebody who's got no skin in the game to come in and just give us some recommendations. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't hesitate. You don't have to do it alone. Don't feel like it's all on you to do those things. Like, you have experts to reach out to.
And if you want to have that conversation and you're afraid how to approach it, don't lead with, I don't feel like this is fair. I feel like this isn't working. I feel like you have this. But like, hey, I'm just feeling a little, uneasy with this. I'm not sure if this is the best way. I think if we take some time and step back and look at the big picture together, it will help us reevaluate if what we're doing makes the most sense for the long term. Yeah, don't start on the attack.
No, never goes well.
It never goes well. And just, like, be open and be honest. And if you've got a financial secret that's hiding in the closet, like some debt or anything, just think about how you would feel if the other person was in that situation, and what approach would help you best understand and deal with that from a gaining that knowledge perspective. So if somebody's like, you don't want to just, like, rip off the Band-Aid. Hey, by the way, I've got $10,000 in credit card debt. Like, hey, I've got something I want to share with you, and it makes me a little nervous, and I, feel some shame and fear around it, but it's important. And hopefully they take it well, but getting it out of the dark is really important.
Step one. Yes. So we don't have an answer if this person is the asshole or not, because we don't know enough about their situation, but it gave us a good talking point. We hope that you took something from this conversation. You feel less alone, or you feel some courageous enough to take that next step
and start having those conversations. There's not enough conversations going on about money, and Val and I get to see a lot of people's reality. And the reality is that if you're carrying debt, or you're feeling challenged with how to manage your money, or you think you're overspending, or you're overspending, you're not alone. Somebody around you is feeling the exact same thing, and they're also holding it in the dark. So let's pull back the curtains and start having more of those money conversations.
You said it.
We can't wait to see you next time. And thank you for listening to the Mind and Money podcast.